to Getting Dirty Live on the Midwest Racing Radio Network. Your host, Brian Speaker, will have the promoters, the drivers, the crew members, and, of course, the people that make it happen in racing, you the fans. Join us every week at this time right here as we are Getting Dirty Live. And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Brian Speaker. Hey everybody, we're back. Thank you for joining us. This is Brian Speaker, and you're on Getting Dirty Live on the Midwest Racing Radio Network. I got a special treat this hour. KC Webb, KC Motorsports, is back. Last year on Getting Dirty Live, he made some appearances. And in our usual third-hour segment, this week, we're going to ruffle a few more feathers. KC, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, man?
How's the holidays treating you?
Very well, very well.
Very well.
I'm kind of waiting for, the first of the year, because I would say probably with all our listeners listening to us itself, Christmas is going to be a fun time to deal with it, because we're going to be sending those really great Christmas cards out, and somebody is going to be pretty excited about what we're going to do.
Now, you got a few announcements to make and a few things that you're letting out of the bag in this segment, and I will caution the callers that we are not going to open the phones for this segment. Bear with us. Don't send any of the emails. As a matter of fact, you can send them to KC, because whatever he says, he's responsible for, as we all know. Just like whatever I say, I get to eat the crow on. KC, 2015. It sounds exciting. What little I know on the surface. Tell us about it.
Well, 2015 is going to be a pretty interesting, probably a really interesting racing season. We have a lot of things in the works right now, and for some reason, there's a lot of people that think that we're not going to be able to get this done. And I just told them, I said, the reality of it is if you follow the rules that what we have came up with, it can be done.
Now, when you mention the rules that that KC Motorsports has come up with, can you get into some of the details as far as how these rules were established? Were they established based upon common motorsports marketing concepts, or more professional ones, as like along the lines of NASCAR, where the industry seems to trend that way right now, where it's taking a lot more marketing skill to get tag those big sponsors to cover full seasons?
Well, Brian, we've been doing this for a while now, and what we have learned in this industry, there are two things in this industry. One, you have to have rules for the game itself, and number two, you have to be able to implement them. Many people go out there and look for sponsorship and look for marketing, and they look for everything else, but they forget about that they got to find a team. You got to find a client. Once you find a client, then you can move on to the next level. Once you find a client, then you move on to the next level, then you have to sign the client. See, that's what I've been trying to tell everybody, is everybody keeps on talking about, well, I can't find sponsorship, I can't find this and that. It's because they have no rules to the game of what they're trying to do. One, you have to do, what's the three things that we've all talked about?
If I remember our shows last year, one of the things you had, have a program with some value to it.
That's one.
Number two, now my memory's not the best, I'm getting I'm getting up there in age, compared to some, but number two, you have to have not just a product with a value, but you have to have a venue to sell it in.
There's number two, and then what's the third one?
And the third one is you need to be able to sell it to an audience of those that attract the sponsorship money that you want.
All right, excellent. But we forgot about the basics, the very, very basics, is you sign the driver. You sign the agent-driver agreement. Then you sign the sponsor. A lot of people don't realize it. But what we just basically talked about was we were looking at the second stage of it. The first stage is you have to find the client. Second thing you have to do is you have to sign the driver-agent agreement. That is who is going to be the lead agent of that deal. When we are talking about a sponsor, it doesn't matter what sponsor it is. They're going to say, who represents the driver? I do. And then the question is, now you sign the driver, the agent, and the sponsor. The sponsor's going to ask three things. What can you do for me? How soon do you want your money? And the third thing is, when can I get it done? Now, we all think that that's really simple and everything else, but it's not, because if you do not have a way to activate the sponsorship in what you're doing, you don't have anything. You can't go out there and say, Mr. Sponsor, give me $100,000 and I'll go race this series. Okay, great. But the question is that what's your racing budget look like? Your racing budget is already three things. Racing budget for the year, racing budget for the month, and then the racing budget the 1 week before the race. These three things are never considered in any kind of sponsorship deal because no one seems to know how much you need. So if you did receive $100,000 and your racing budget was $150,000, you would have to come up with another $50,000, don't you think?
Oh, yes, I believe so. Let's roll it back and simplify it a little bit. Now, there's two levels to the kind of racing. The kind of racing we're talking about is on a professional touring level, and the other one is more as weekend warrior hobbyist level. Casey, let's roll back to the hobbyist. Let's really help them understand the difference between the two, why they don't understand the professional level versus why.
Well, the hobby, I will tell you this right now, and I don't want to say anything. I don't want to pour water on your idea itself. But the hobby level needs to go away somehow. The reason it does is because what it does is it takes money away from the family. When you start taking money away from the family and the food away from the family and the college funds away from the family and all the rest of stuff, you're not really doing yourself any service because it's too expensive of a sport to just turn it into a hobby. I think hobby racing is basically a poor boy's a way of having some kind of entertainment, and I think that's really wrong on all aspects because then they can't race for nothing. And I think the hobby concept is really a bad way to go in racing right now.
Yeah, I mean, because you see some great drivers out there who just cannot afford to run. And I'm not saying they're all hobbyists or they're or the grassroots level. But, yeah, they want to go to NASCAR someday. They want to go race with the World of Outlaws, or they want to go on the pro level, the NHR. You just can't hold a day job and do this.
Exactly. And then also the other problem you have is once you find out that you want to do it, then they want to go out there and they don't have a system to go out and do it. People all say to me every day, they call me up and they go, Casey, there's no way you can pull this off. And I says, well, first things first. What are the three things that we usually ask for a driver? The thing we ask from a driver is commitment. Are you willing to sign a deal with us and follow the way that we've come up with our plan? If you're not willing to sign on with us, then why would we want to teach you everything you need to know? Because when you come up with the racing budget, okay, that's great. But the bottom line is you have to follow through. You have to get your photographs taken. You have to have your racing bio. And you have to have information about what your team is. There are so many people, Brian, in this industry that never do these things. And then when they go talk to a sponsor, they just say, I've got a race car. Or I've got something. They don't even know what they're going to do. So I always go back to that. One of the things I want to do with my website is I need to come up with some kind of a system for racing. And once we have that, then we'll have something to really show what people are talking about.
Now, when you talk about the system for racing, I mean, the system is pretty much universal to a small degree. It's not exactly what the NASCAR teams are doing today, but it is so cutting edge and so outside the box that it almost makes a person going through it look like a complete genius when people actually get the aha moment and the light bulb moment and make the connection of what it's got to take to get it done.
Exactly. But I will tell you this right now. The reason I like the idea about putting together a system is you can put some kind of market value to the team, and you can put some kind of a decision on what the driver can actually handle and what he cannot handle. A lot of people are not ready for this. And they're not ready for the national news, or they're not ready for the regional news. They're not ready for it because they don't know how to deal with it. I feel that our system that we come up with can help each and every one of the drivers that we sign on. Many drivers are not ready. So how do you get ready? Take, for example, yourself. You're looking at racing in 2015. We've been grooming you, getting you ready for it. You're going to go racing. The problem is we had to take the time and the effort and especially the tenacity to stay with it to get you ready for it. Don't you think? I mean, don't you think that that's kind of like what we've been doing for the last short while?
Well, actually, for the last 2 years, you just kind of let the cat out of the bag for 2015, Casey. We might as well just go ahead and tell them, what the plans are.
Well, the plans are basically is that we're trying to put together a deal right now for the Chili Bowl. And the second thing is you're going to be running the 360 series. It sounds really unique in what it's going to be, but we've already been talking to some people about this, and they seem to be really excited about this. So we'll see what happens. I mean, they're all saying they would like to wait after Christmas. And you know how I am. I mean, I'm not going to wait until after Christmas. I think we have to start moving towards it now. But that's okay, because everything has a timeline. Everything has a reason to do it. And I've always said it this way. You have to have a cause and effect to everything you do. If you do not have a cause, then there's no effect. And if you have a cause and then an effect, what's the solution to anything that's going on?
Exactly. One thing real quick here, KC, before we get into some of the other things with KC Motorsports and talking about the industry in general, we're going to take a quick break. Come back, and I'm with KC Webb of KC Motorsports. And KC, hold on for a moment, and we'll be right back. This is Getting Dirty Live. I'm Brian Speaker, your host. We'll be back in just a few.
I'm Deidre Hall with a message about your eye health. My mother had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD, which means my family members are at greater risk. AMD affects vision, and having low vision as a result of wet AMD, the more severe form of AMD, can mean a task like driving can become a major challenge.
I'm Dr. Sada of the Doheny Eye Institute in UCLA. AMD is the most common cause of severe, irreversible vision loss in older adults in the U.S. AMD affects central vision, which lets you see fine details. About 9 million Americans are living with wet AMD or are at risk. If you're over 50, smoke, or have a family history of wet AMD, you could be at increased risk. If a healthcare professional suspects wet AMD, a retina specialist can confirm the diagnosis and work with you on a treatment plan.
Routine eye care, including regular eye exams, can help maintain your vision. Visit www.geteyesmart.org for more information. Push it.
Push it real good. Baby. If you're salt and pepper, you tell people to push it. Push it real good. It's what you do. If you want to save 15% or more on car insurance, you switch to Geico. It's what you do. I'm pushing it real good. Don't miss the largest indoor race of the year, where champion racers from all types of motorsports will compete for the prestigious Golden Driller. MAV TV brings you the Lucas Oil Chili Bowl Nationals, presented by General Tire. Over 200 racers will fight for 5 grueling days, and only the very best will make it to the final race. The 29th annual Lucas Oil Chili Bowl Nationals, coming January 17th, live on MAV TV.
You're listening to the voice of Dirt Motorsports across the nation and around the world. This is the Midwest Racing Radio Network. Welcome back to Getting Dirty Live. I'm Brian Speaker, and our guest this hour, KC Webb of KC Motorsports. And KC and I were just kind of talking about the racing industry, promoting, marketing, signing drivers. What do drivers have to do to get signed in the in a more effective situation that brings a little bit more marketing money? Now, you kind of dropped a bombshell on everybody. You know, this host sitting here. You just told the world that this host is basically going to be racing for you next season. I've seen some of the sponsorship stuff that we've got. We've got a really good apparel company. Tell us a little bit about Big Mouth Bass.
Well, Big Mouth Bass, what I did is I came up with an idea that I think it goes back to the scenario that we've all been talking about. There's always going to be a big mouth guy out there talking about whatever he's going to do. And really, when it comes right down to it, we're going to make you a person of the month. So if you find somebody that's a really big mouth guy that tells everybody what he thinks of this and that, let's turn him into the Big Mouth Bass person of the month, because it all goes down to the same thing. Somebody has to find a way to shut these guys up. And the only way to shut them up is by
exposing them.
Completing what we're doing. What's that?
Now, and also exposing them. Now, like you said, there's always that opinionated race fan or race driver or pit crew member or what have you. And the concept, if I understand this correctly, is each different shirt in the series will have a first name. It will not really mean anybody in particular, but it will also have the logo, of the company, and also the fish. Now each fish, if I understand the concept correctly, will have its name, on the shirt, and also it will be a different color or a different design fish. And they're all hand-drawn by your staff designers at Big Mouth Bass and KC Motorsports. And for every nomination that you get via email through the KC Motorsports website, when you and your social media, you can nominate these Big Mouth Bass. And once a month, you'll pick a new one and make a new run of shirts. And those shirts go out with the dirt program, which would be the midgets and the sprint cars, whether they be the 410s, 360s, or your dirt USAC or Power Eye midgets. If I got all that correctly, I believe that's what I read.
Right. Well, and the way I look at it right now is that people will buy something that actually is going to be more of a trend. It's going to be kind of a cool thing to have, and whatever it is. But see, people won't have a way to do it if we don't come up with something. So we now come up with something.
If it's what I read and understand your concept with Big Mouth Bass, that is what you plan on doing. Is that correct?
Yes.
And as far as it's not just your everyday T-shirt, what would you call it?
Well, I think it's going to be more of a statement of a purpose. There's too many people out there that are basically talking about what they want to do, but they don't have anything that's going to be kind of fun to do itself. And this all goes back to the same thing. We in the industry have seen that if you don't have a reason or a purpose or even a concept doing anything in the industry, then all you're going to be is just one of the bottom feeder team. What we're trying to show is that we're going to change that dynamic. And by owning when we sign a driver to our program, we own the rights to them. We own the rights, we own the media rights, we own the television rights, we own the face, we own all the rights to the driver. Now the driver has a job to do in his life. Now, we go back to the same thing. So many people want to be hecklers and all that stuff. I think by going out there and putting a shirt together and basically having the shirt and the name connected to it, I think it's going to be a fun thing to do. I think people are going to be standing in line trying to figure out who's going to be what. But the beauty of it is that we're going to be the ones that design who is going to be. And if we get the right people calling us, or we get the right people calling us and saying they're nominating somebody itself, who knows what's going to happen? But who knows what actually is going to happen either? Because we don't know. All I know right now is somewhere down the line, somebody has to do something different, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, it is different. Because if you look at, I know you made this point to me off the air, in several meetings, you pulled out something like 30-some race shirts you've collected over the years, and I mean, literally, the designs haven't changed. I mean, they're just. Yeah, the font is a little different, or the car's got a different color, or, something along those lines. But it's just not really brand orientated. It focuses on the driver. It doesn't help as a real marketing tool for anything.
Exactly. Well, a prime example is I talked to a company that actually is connected to the dirt world itself, and he sells T-shirts and those kind of things itself. And I asked him, I says, what do you do with all of the shirts that the drivers never pick up? And what he come up with was, he says, I usually probably have to eat the shirts, or I have to get them destroyed or whatever, okay? And I like what I'm saying is that what's wrong with the industry is we're not bringing any kind of fan support. What I want to do in the 2015 season is I want to consider the idea of buying the shirts up and giving them a purpose to people that want to see them, that will happily want to see them. And I've always said that it's kind of sad, but when a T-shirt company gets caught up with a driver that says, I want 100 T-shirts, and they only pick up 50 of them, and they never pick up the next 50, who usually eats them?
Yeah, and the thing is they only collect they don't collect for the full run. They only collect for the 50 that they pick up.
Exactly.
And then
the other 50 are never used for anything else.
And the thing is then your people in the merchandising world complain. They say, well, nobody pays their bills or nobody does this. Even if they only ordered 50 and did a run of 50 they had to pick them all up at that time.
Well, what you and I just talked about was what's wrong with that industry is that's not the way it needs to be done.
Yeah.
If you're going to hire a company, and we know of 5 or 6 different other companies, but if you're going to hire a company to do a service for you, you need to abide by the rules of the game of itself. Just like I said, we need to come up with the racing system that is basically around the driver, the agent, and the sponsor. The agent's job is to make sure things get done. If you put it on the driver will never get it done, no matter what anybody says. Now, the sponsor is going to want to know what's going on also because they're going to say, okay, I paid for this many shirts. Where are they? And if you don't get them done, then you just basically breach the contract with the race team itself. And that's a mistake that the agent does. And that's where I think I'm going to be strong in that industry, and that can really be a support system for the driver and the sponsor at the same time.
There's one thing you do mention that kind of, turned on a little light bulb over here in this valley of darkness between my ears. Actually, it's pretty full, but that's another story too. These people, sponsors pay for X amount of this in their packages. They're not promised insurance, but they pay for them anyway. You tell me, should the sponsor be treated better? If you go out and you get sponsored by a team,
I think the sponsor never puts enough time and effort into it. Take, for example, there are 3 things in this industry that we talk about: sponsorship, marketing, and racing. Okay? The problem that people don't realize is that there's 100% that has to go into your team. 30% has to be about the team. 30% has to be about the racing team operation. The other 30% has to go into publicity and marketing of the team. And 10% goes from what they call the slush fund. You have to have a number of what it is. So if you don't know your racing budgets, and you don't know where you're going to go racing, and you don't know what you're really going to do, then how can you go to a sponsor and ask them for something that you will not know on how you're not going to be able to implement? So how can you do that?
Exactly. And that's lack of planning on either the driver or team owner's part.
Right.
You see so many teams that are a one-man show or a 2-person show. What's your structure with KC Motorsports? I know you got the agent. I know you got the team president. You wear 3 hats over there. You handle the marketing end of it. You handle the management end of it. And you also handle the team ownership end of it. If I'm correct, you've got a pavement division, you've got a midget division, and you've got the sprint car division. And each one of those are driver manager. But, they have a team underneath them that fills a lot of those shoes that allow them to do that.
Right.
Can you explain how that works with you?
I think it goes back to the value of the team is really all about the racing team operation. But we always go back to the other side of it. You have to provide the information correctly. You have to know a little bit about what your team is doing yourself. Too many go out there and they run around with what they call a shoestring budget, and they try to figure out ways to do what they got to do, and then they take the food away from the family. Then they caught up in what they call debt. They'll go get themselves a credit card, and they'll think, well, they'll spend the money on their race team because they can. And then the worst thing is what these guys do is then they also come back and they say, well, I can't afford to go racing, so I'm going to sell my race car. and then they're selling just the iron of it. They can't seem to get any more value for it. Okay, my concept has always been is sign the driver, sign the race team or the agent, sign the sponsor, then go out there and recreate the team by bringing the team a valuable asset to what it could be. But don't go out there and drive and go buy the team and do all the rest of it and then go find everything else. You're missing out on the value of what the sponsor could bring to the table. Because what is the one thing the sponsors are looking for it?
Value and exposure, and also and some return on investment.
Yeah, but what's the other thing they do? You said 3 things, then what's the 4th thing?
Let's see here. The 4th thing is, they want something back for being a part of that team.
Yes.
Whether it be, seats at the racetrack, or something. A hero card or a photo just doesn't do it in the showroom anymore, or the main business area of a sponsor's business. You got to get them out to the track, treat them to a racetrack, give them a little, like some of the things that some of the tracks I've gone to, there are sponsors up in those stands in those VIP boxes. Go out and rent a VIP box. Treat your sponsors right. You pull one sponsor a week, and you basically, out of all those sponsors that you have, let's say you have 9 sponsors, you got sponsors coming to 9 shows at that one track. And you've rented that VIP box for the year. You can turn around and put the family in for the remaining, whatever's left.
Right.
Or what you do is, if it's a smaller track, you just go out and get them race tickets, and you make sure you put someone in your organization in charge to making sure they got all the food, the hot dogs, the beer, or whatever they drank, a program, and, that they're all happy and they get to see you run.
And that's exactly what we've been basically saying for the last while is what's the main thing about it is just exactly what you just said. But one of the things that they actually look at is because it is a business, they look at it as an advertising expense. So it's a write-off for them. People don't understand this. This is a racing business. This is a business of racing. It's not just something you're dealing with somebody's name on your car. You are representing them. You are going to expect to be doing things for them. And also, you have to be paid to do it. So in your racing budget, you have to know what you're going to be doing.
Now, Casey, and one thing that you brought up, it's like rolling back to the VIP idea. You got your sponsors in the stands, and you decided you're going to get them tickets to a major event. You decided that you're going to invite corporate management to a major event. You want to treat them right. You get them a VIP box. And the thing is one great thing that the driver needs to do, this is just my idea, is if you got that sponsor in the house, you need to get their T-shirt with their name on it out into the house, into the fan, the average fan. You don't have to make any money on it, because then it's a choice for them to spend. But if you gave, let's say, I'll use for an example, if you and I walked into the Chili Bowl and we handed out 100 shirts and our sponsor was there, if they saw 10 of them, what do you think would be going through their heads?
Well, of course, they would say that the team did something for their sponsorship.
Exactly.
Which is exactly what we've been saying is that try to do yourself a favor and not just make one T-shirt.
Yeah.
Make multiple T-shirts, or make shirts for an event. Because right now, our biggest problem with the racing world is we're not getting the fans excited about racing, because it's always going to be an expense. Like I went to a racetrack in Oklahoma, and I went and met with a gentleman that actually was a USMTS driver, and lo and behold, I went and I specifically went and told him that I wanted a T-shirt. He didn't have one. He actually sold me his shirt off his back. And he goes, yeah, I said, I love that one. Can I buy that one from you? And I gave him the price for it. But I gave him a little bit more extra for it. But you know what? When it came right down to it, he didn't know how to, he had no idea how to react to that. Because he said during, said, what does it mean to this? And I just said the same thing. I said, people don't realize it, but when you get a jersey off a baseball player or a football player or a soccer player or whatever, it's got market value to it because it is something that came from him.
I'm Brian Speaker. This is Getting Dirty Live on the Midwest Racing Radio Network. We'll be back shortly. You're listening to the voice of dirt motorsports across the nation and around the world. This is the Midwest Racing Radio Network.
When you choose a great-tasting Miller Lite, you're choosing on taste, and that's the right choice, not the wrong choice, because right is way better than wrong. You don't try to do the wrong thing. Wrong on, brother? Back off, and I don't even know you. If someone asks you if everything's all wrong, ask them to pull your finger. Ever read the Bill of Wrongs? It was written by James Madison and John Sadams. Drawing a wrong triangle? Place this protractor at 90 degrees and sit on it. What's wrong around the corner? An 8-foot ex-con named Tiny, and he wants your wallet. That's wrong up your alley. Just like the drifter feeding moldy muffin stumps to his 13 hairless cats. Got a wrong hand, man? I've got a cousin named Randall with clammy hands. The customer's always wrong? Well, that explains the waiter's creepy grin as I ate my toast. Two wrongs do make a wrong. Am I wrong? Wrong. So don't make the wrong choice. Make the right choice. And choose on taste. Triple hops brewed Miller Lite. Taste greatness. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Great beer, great responsibility.
I'm Deidre Hall with a message about your eye health. My mother had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD, which means my family members are at greater risk. AMD affects vision, and having low vision as a result of wet AMD, the more severe form of AMD, can mean a task like driving can become a major challenge.
I'm Dr. Sada of the Doheny Eye Institute in UCLA. AMD is the most common cause of severe, irreversible vision loss in older adults in the U.S. AMD affects central vision, which lets you see fine details. About 9 million Americans are living with wet AMD or are at risk. If you're over 50, smoke, or have a family history of wet AMD, you could be at increased risk. If a healthcare professional suspects wet AMD, a retina specialist can confirm the diagnosis and work with you on a treatment plan.
Routine eye care, including regular eye exams, can help maintain your vision. Visit www.geteyesmart.org for more information.
If you're salt and pepper, you tell people to push it. Push it real good. That's what you do. If you want to save 15% or more on car insurance, you switch to Geico. It's what you do. I'm pushing it real good.
Don't miss the largest indoor race of the year, where champion racers from all types of motorsports will compete for the prestigious Golden Driller. MAV TV brings you the Lucas Oil Chili Bowl Nationals, presented by General Tire. Over 200 racers will fight for 5 grueling days, and only the very best will make it to the final race. The 29th annual Lucas Oil Chili Bowl Nationals, coming January 17th, live on MAV TV.
You're listening to the voice of dirt motorsports across the nation and around the world. This is the Midwest Racing Radio Network. Welcome back to Getting Dirty Live on the Midwest Racing Radio Network. I'm Brian Speaker. I have KC Webb with me. We are talking about marketing, promotion, the things that racers and track operators and promoters do, or what they should be doing, or which way the trend is starting to turn, and why tracks are failing, why racers are failing. Basically, the new world order of racing. And KC, as you alluded to just before we had to take the bottom of the hour break, you mentioned that marketing and racing and not drivers just aren't able to satisfy the fan needs. Well, let's turn that wheel a little bit and throw it back on the promoter. What are they not doing right?
Well, the promoters are doing the things that we basically have been talking about for the last 10 years. Basically, what the promoters need to be done is that they need to fire all the promoters and change the guard. And what that basically means is that a promoter's job is to create two things. What are the two things that a promoter's supposed to create?
To create excitement and entertainment for the fans and to provide a venue that is safe for all drivers to compete on.
But the main thing a promoter is supposed to do is to bring the money. Bring the money, bring the fans.
In other words, share the wealth.
This will create the marketing side of bringing the racing program together, right? The problem with promoters is they don't even know who the fans are. And also the promoters don't even know who the drivers are. So how can you figure out how to bring the money?
Exactly.
These guys need to be re-educated because their educational skills are just not there. They do not understand it.
I know you and I worked together on one project. We took a casebook example where we looked at 5 tracks across Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas. 5 racetracks we looked at and how they operated. It just seemed like one track was struggling with one class or another. They bring in the A-mods, but the A-mods did not have the following. They'd sit there and they blame the A-mods and they cut them out of the show, and then they'd go down deeper when they try to bring in another class. Can you kind of explain, what kind of snowball effect that creates, and help the listeners understand why they're cutting their legs off at their knees?
Well, I think it goes back to the same thing, like, Brian, what we've been basically talking about for the last while. The problem in American racing is it's too long, it's too boring, and it takes forever to get it done. And what happens there is that's why somebody needs to come in, change the guard, change what's happening itself. And that's why if we go out there and do this, we're dealing with racing. We're going to be dealing with racers and racing and racetracks and ownerships and all the rest of stuff. But guess what? If we come up with the system for racing, or the racing system, we can be able to maybe actually try to help these guys. Now, we all know that I'm not a racer. We all know that I am not a guy that builds engines. I am not a guy that builds race cars. I don't do any of that stuff. What I am is I'm an economics major. I am also talking about, I understand advertising, marketing, and promotion and publicity. I understand how to put together media campaigns. I know how to do television, radio, and print. This is what I bring to the table. Now, if I want to build a race car, I'm going to talk to Brian and say, Brian, I need a builder. You'll give me a list. You'll give me a list of guys that we can go to.
Anyway, I mean, you surround yourself, KC Motorsports is surrounded by people who are friends of the operation, or, that we've actually hired as paid employees and all that. Look at it, and it says, not one person doesn't know it all. It's a group of people who know a little bit about their little corner of the world.
Exactly.
And
what's the one thing that these guys miss out on?
You mean the promoters? Because they have to try to...
I'm talking about just the people in the industry itself. What is the one thing that they forget about?
Well, first of all, they do forget about the fact that they can't do it all themselves. They may know a lot, but they don't know everything. And there's no possible way in the world they all could know everything. Right. The other part is, you can only do so much. I mean, some of the most successful companies have staffs of 20 and 30 people that literally do, what they do.
Exactly.
And that's
what is the one thing that the racers forget about in this short track racing of America right now? What's the one thing that the racers forget about?
It's taking care of the sponsor and the fan.
Exactly. And that is one thing. It is probably one sentence: being service oriented.
Exactly.
Being service oriented. That means that basically you're providing a service, and you have to be oriented to that concept. If you are not going to be service-oriented, then why are you doing a service for the fans in the stand?
Exactly. I mean, you're providing the entertainment as a driver or as a promoter to your fans. When you have 6 classes or 5 classes or even 4 classes and your show lasts more than 3 hours, or you're sitting here just ripping them through, and if you have a night where the track is literally just garbage, I mean, you're not providing the fans. They're ready to get up and go have a steak and go home and go to bed and forget about it. I mean, they just realize that they just wasted $110 on tickets for their 6 people that came with them.
Exactly. And that's where I think the promoters are missing out on what could be done. And what I've been saying for the last while is we have to kind of like find a way to change that dynamic by turning it into something that will be exciting for everybody. What racers do not understand is that the fans have family. The fans have kids. The fans have family problems and situations in their lives. When a man goes and leaves the house and says, I'm going to go to the races and I'm going to be gone for a short while, fine. But when a man says, I'm going to go to the races and I'll be gone all day, the question is, it's an all-day event to go to the races. So now the question is, if you're only going to get $5 for that all-day event, then you basically you basically are just going to be catering to this gentleman, or you're going to be babysitting him. One or the other. You're going to be catering to him, or you're going to be babysitting him. The second thing is, what's that?
I was going to say, on that line, I mean, it makes it kind of interesting because as a driver myself, as somebody that's worked on teams that I've helped turn wrenches on and things like that, race day is an all-day thing. I mean, it really is. and all night. I mean, you go to prepare your car race day, you know, I mean, and this isn't my own thought here, but, you know, some of this falls back on the racer who's got a job. You know, they can only work on their car like the night before or the day of as they're loading up. You know, they've taken that Friday off and they're going to a Friday night race, and they got to race Saturday somewhere else, and they're sitting there, they're working all day on their car. They get in their car, they tow 4 hours or 3 hours or whatever, and they unload their car. They, you know, go do their normal wear and tear and damage, and then they come back home and they, you know, they sleep for a few hours, and they're up at the crack of dawn again. They got their car off the trailer, they're washing it, they're repairing it, they're getting it ready for the next track. Where's the family time?
Well, and that's why we've all said is that there's only 24 hours in a day. A man should only have 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of work in a job, and 8 hours of playtime. When you take any part of that world or that any of those hours out of that situation, you're always depriving yourself of something. The family, the wife, the kid, any kind of things you have to do, the family outings, any of that. What we've all been talking about is racing has to change because it's a lifestyle. You want to be a race car driver, then you got to abide by the rules of being in that lifestyle. And that lifestyle is a tough lifestyle. It's not just something that you just wake up one day and I'm going to be a race car driver, because there are so many things that have to go with it. So why not come back to the system like I just said? If you come up with a racing system, how do you think that's going to benefit us?
Us as a team, or, you know, I need you to kind of clarify for me here on this.
As an organization that is looking to change the dynamic, we're giving them a system that will be a benefit to the family, a benefit to the organization, a benefit to the racetrack, and a benefit to the race series. Once you have a system in place, it takes the problems away from what it is. And what I've always said is it's one thing to go out there and put a 3-hour show together than a 7-hour show. You're going to get the same amount of money from the gentleman anyway. But if you do a 3-hour show and you do it 3 days, now what you've done is you've got 9 hours of racing, but you've got 3 hours of somebody being at the racetrack instead of one 7-hour show that basically is just crap or whatever it is. But in 3 days, you could do a lot more stuff with it. Now, the problem that I've seen in racing right now is we're traveling all around the United States trying to go to these racetracks and this and that. And you know what's really funny? No one knows who's going to show up. So why would you want to go buy a ticket to a racetrack if you don't know who's going to show up?
Exactly, and that's some of the problems that, you know, that I've seen in last year especially. Casey, we're going to hold up right here. I'm going to take our last break for the hour, and we're going to get a little deeper. We're going to drop a few names and drop some instances as far as promoters on, and get your suggestions on what you think they need to do to tighten up their programs for the 2015 race season. I'm Brian Speaker, and this is the Midwest Racing Radio Network. You're listening to the voice of dirt motorsports across the nation and around the world. This is the Midwest Racing Radio Network.
Salt and pepper, you tell people to push it. Push it real good. That's what you do. If you want to save 15% or more on car insurance, you switch to Geico. It's what you do. I'm pushing it real good.
Don't miss the largest indoor race of the year, where champion racers from all types of motorsports will compete for the prestigious Golden Driller. MAV TV brings you the Lucas Oil Chili Bowl Nationals, presented by General Tire. Over 200 racers will fight for 5 grueling days, and only the very best will make it to the final race. The 29th annual Lucas Oil Chili Bowl Nationals, coming January 17th, live on MAV TV.
I'm Deidre Hall with a message about your eye health. My mother had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD, which means my family members are at greater risk. AMD affects vision, and having low vision as a result of wet AMD, the more severe form of AMD, can mean a task like driving can become a major challenge.
I'm Dr. Sada of the Doheny Eye Institute and UCLA. AMD is the most common cause of severe, irreversible vision loss in older adults in the U.S. AMD affects central vision, which lets you see fine details. About 9 million Americans are living with wet AMD or are at risk. If you're over 50, smoke, or have a family history of wet AMD, you could be at increased risk. If a healthcare professional suspects wet AMD, a retina specialist can confirm the diagnosis and work with you on a treatment plan.
Routine eye care, including regular eye exams, can help maintain your vision. Visit www.geteyesmart.org for more information.
At Miller Lite, we believe if you're not choosing a light beer with more taste, you need to man up, not man down. Because up is way better than down. You don't tell someone sad to cheer down. What's down, dog? A steamy pile. And you just stepped in it. Giddy down, cowboy? You must be saddled on a blind three-legged jackass. Struggling to make down your mind? Let me help you. Yes, wear pants today. Looking for a down-and-coming neighborhood? Try Cell Block 4C. Great view with lots of bars nearby. Got a job at a start down company? Let me guess. You slap buckets on a street corner. Getting pumped down for your big party? It's in a chat room and the only guest is Bernie, the 67-year-old retired clown. Oh, and your girlfriend's not wearing a push-down bra. It's called gravity, Isaac Nitwit. Can I be down front with you? All this down talk is bringing me down. So don't man down. Man up and choose a light beer with more taste. Triple hops brewed Miller Lite. Taste greatness. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Great beer, great responsibility.
You're listening to the voice of dirt motorsports across the nation and around the world. This is the Midwest Racing Radio Network. This is the Midwest Racing Radio Network, and you're on Getting Dirty Live. I'm Brian Speaker. We call this the Hot Seat segment, the last segment of the show, of our 3-hour show here on the Midwest Racing Radio Network. I've got KC Webb with me. He is the president of KC Motorsports. KC, you're best described as a motorsports consultant, from what I hear.
Yeah, I am. I am a consultant, but I am also a CEO, a president and founder of an organization called the UHRA. As a consultant, your job is more about creating a service for what people are needing in this lifestyle.
Okay.
We all talk about. I know many sports agents and many motorsports consultants that call me all the time to ask me questions. The problem that I sense is that if you are going to go out and ask me for something, okay, then what's the bottom line you're looking for? What are you looking for? Go back to this idea. What do you think they're looking for?
I think they're looking for a better way to increase their bottom line to fix a problem that they cannot fix.
I've always said it this way, okay? What are the one things these guys call me and ask me about? What's the one thing they ask from me all the time? What do they ask? How
to fix something that they cannot fix.
Exactly. So what I tell them is that what I want to do is I want to give you a fishing pole. That basically means is that I want to teach you how to fish. I want to teach you what you got to do. Because if we give them a fishing pole, they can fish for a lifetime. But if I give them a fish a day, then what have I done? I've just kept them on the leash or on the hook or whatever, right? So when I find out that one of these agents or these idiots call me up and ask me questions about it, and all I know is that they're trying to fish or they're fishing for information, I cut them right off. In fact, I know an executive that is a really big executive in NASCAR, and I sent him a $9 fishing pole. It cost me $9, and I tell you something, it was the joke of the town when it came right down to it. KC Webb sent the executive vice president of this race team a fishing pole, and no one knew what it was. And it was like an inside joke, but it was the real truth. If you are looking or you're fishing for information from me, I'm going to send you a fishing pole because I do not like guys that are fishing. I don't have time for it because all they're trying to do is get whatever they can get out of it for free.
It's kind of like our concept with the merchandising that we've got with your apparel company called Big Mouth Bass. Along those lines, there is an inside joke with it. You know, I'm not going to disclose it here, but it's kind of affects somebody that's been fishing or trying to derail our process. And like I said, it's one of those things where, yeah, we can have a little fun, but we're going to have it at your expense, being that now that you got our attention.
Well, that's true. I think when it comes right down to it, many people that want information don't realize that it's a valuable information package. It's like a man says to me, he says, Casey, I'll hire you as my consultant, or I'll hire you as my sports agent, but I won't give you any power. I won't give you anything to go do. And so basically what they do is they hire you, and then they handcuff you, and they just basically tell you, you teach them, but they'll only they only want to learn what they want to learn. Okay, they don't want to learn your system. Here's why this idea will work. If you are going to abide by the rules of what we are going to set up, don't go fishing for information. Sign a deal with somebody and get them to teach you what you need to know. If you're not willing to do it, then do not even think about trying to get on with one of us, because we're not going to give our information to you guys just for free. It does have a value. It does have a cost. It does have an expense to it itself, because we invested in it. And if we're going to invest in it, you have to do the same with your racing program. You have to invest in your racing program. It's not an engine. It's not a race car. It's not tires. It's not anything else. It is the media world. The media world is what they call the money division itself. This is where the money comes from for you to go racing. And if you don't think that way, you know what? Send me back an email, or send me some information. Send it to the radio station. Do whatever you want to do, but get an answer. Because if you've got a question, how are you going to know if you're going to be able to get it or not?
Exactly. That's the fact. Now, like we promised, coming back, while we were at our break here, I'm going to cite two sanctions that had issues in 2014 with drivers promoting, you name it, or promoters groups, should I say. First of all, we're going to address WISSOTA. Drivers are upset. They've got some competition in the upper Midwest, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota. Well, IMCA has been around forever. And why are promoters dumping off, a little at a time? It's not a mass exodus, but why are the drivers so critical? And the USRA guys are, at some of the tracks, some of the USRA tracks switched over to IMCA, or they went back to WISSOTA, or they dumped off of WISSOTA and went to a different sanction or something like that. What is the problem with WISSOTA? What is it going to take to fix WISSOTA?
WISSOTA is a prime example of changing the guard, okay? You can only, if you are only willing to take care of yourself and only yourself, then you have to change the guard. It's like mutiny. You have to come up with something to change what's happening itself. That means from the very top of the executives all the way down to the guy that answers the damn phone at WISSOTA. Basically what that basically means is that you've got to change the culture of what's happening. The culture in the WISSOTA series is the drivers are not making any money. And if you can't make any money, then why are you putting together a series that makes some sense to it? That's one of the reasons why when I told you what I wanted to do is we need to get inside some of these race series and actually figure out what's really going on and how we can be a complement to it. Bottom line is that somebody could go in and say to Terry or to the owner of WISSOTA and say, we want to buy this series and let's change the dynamics by changing the guard, by bringing something new to the table. What's the three things that we want to do, we want to bring to the table to the racer? What's the three things we want to usually bring to the table?
Increased purse, increased points fund, some value for the fan to it, so where it's more affordable for them to attend more races.
Exactly. But the one thing is that bring money to the team, bring money to the race series, and bring money to the value of what the series is, right?
Exactly.
So really, when it comes right down to it, we need to bring the value up. And it's going to sound funny, but have you ever thought about the idea of what ski resorts are doing now and whatever it is? You can buy a season pass, but you can go to 5 different ski resorts on that same pass. We need to do that same concept. If you are a part of the WISSOTA series, why are you not coming up with a race pass that will give you a value of being a part of it? See, these guys haven't even thought about that concept. They're all thinking about how much money they can put in their pocket so they can still have the life that they want. They don't care about the racers. And that's why I put my organization together, because that is what I'm worried about. I'm more worried about the racers than I am the series. Because without the racers, the series does not make any sense anyway.
And without the racers, there are no fans.
Right. So why not come up with a way to build some kind of series that is going to be beneficial to the fan and beneficial to the racer and the series itself?
I mean, there's one thing, Casey, that I've always said, I know numerous promoters that thought I'm crazy for saying it, but, they think they can fill the grandstands with a street stock show, and this, and, 4 cylinders, all entry-level cars. Yeah, they're grassroots, and yeah, they're going to have more family involved. But you know what? Nobody's going to pay to show up if a water truck is going around the track half the night, or a tractor.
Exactly.
Nobody pays to watch the track prep tractor race around the track.
Right.
And
but what's the one thing? What's the one thing we talked about when it comes to that kind of racing? The problem is that those kind of cars, parts fall off. Those kind of cars, things happen, no matter what anybody says. Now you go out there and you put a sprint series on there on out there itself, and you now have a way that when you're going around the track, you don't even know what's in the what's in the dirt itself. And we've all said that's where these problems with these stupid water trucks and whatever it is. They don't grade the racetrack. They don't grade it, so they never know what's going to be inside the dirt of the racetrack itself. Now, you go around and you're doing 50, 75, or even 100 miles an hour, and you're going around a corner itself, and you cut a tire because you hit something. It's not the racer's fault. It's whose fault?
Belongs to the promoter for not walking the track and or digging it or ripping it or whatever it takes in between.
Exactly, and it always goes back to the promoter or the track owner. And the problem is they are not willing to take the responsibility for it. They say you got to sign a release and say you have to keep us. You have to keep us. We don't want to be sued for any kind of a problem that you're having at the racetrack. If the racetrack is not going to be smart enough to take care of the racer that's coming in, and he's got a $50,000 or $100,000 race car, and he's going to go on your racetrack, you need to abide by the rules by accommodating them, by saying that the track is free of any kind of harmful things that's going to be in it. Okay, the only way you can do that is do what?
Get out there and have a crew manually walk it and dig it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, that's another expense, and that's another problem that the racetrack is not willing to put in. As a race series, this is where I'm going to tell you about the race series idea. As a race series, if we walk into the racetrack and we own the race series, and we own the drivers, we own the teams, we own the market, the reality is we walk in the door and we actually can guarantee to the racers that there is not going to be any big stupid crap in the middle of the racetrack, so you won't have a problem getting your tires cut or whatever it is. Because a tire that's cut at 100 miles an hour is a totally different animal than somebody just saying that I just got a little street stock out there and I cut a tire on it because something was in the thing. A tire on a sprint car, if it blows like that, there's a lot of problems that can be happening to it. It could tip, it could flip, it could slide, it can do all kinds of stuff, but it has no control of it because what happens to the tire?
It just shreds. It becomes a projectile at that point.
Exactly. So it goes back to the safety of the fans and everything else. Here's what we all been saying. Protect the driver. Protect the fans. Protect the track, then protect the owner. Do not protect the owner and then everything else last. The racer is the one we have to protect the first. Because if you protect the racer, then you can protect the fans. If you protect the racer and then you protect the fans, then you protect the racetrack. Then the racetrack is now being protected by the owner itself. There's going to be a lot more. These promoters need to learn that situation, and they will never listen to us. So, by the way, that's what we're probably looking at buying a couple of racetracks in 2015. And if we do that, we will show them exactly what we're saying. Because our ultimate goal is in the Wissota Series is we need to buy a couple of them that are in the Wissota Series and become I would probably say the example of what needs to be done. Because if we don't do that, Brian, what are we all going to be looking at all the time?
We're going to be looking at the same thing that happened last year, and it will just continue year after year, more tracks closing, less than the grandstands, which equates to less than the pits, which equates to less events. Eventually, we got an empty track sitting there, no shows to have on it because a promoter lost all his money.
Exactly.
That's going to about do it for us here at Getting Dirty Live on the Midwest Racing Radio Network. I want to thank KC Webb for joining us. Stay tuned after the broadcast on the podcast. We will carry KC Webb and his thoughts on overtime. That's Getting Dirty Live Overtime on the podcast version on the Midwest Racing Radio website. Thank you very much. And until next week, keep the rubber on the track. I'm Brian Speaker.
largest indoor race of the year, where champion racers from all types of motorsports will compete for the prestigious Golden Driller. MAV TV brings you the Lucas Oil Chili Bowl Nationals, presented by General Tire. Over 200 racers will fight for 5 grueling days, and only the very best will make it to the final race. The 29th annual Lucas Oil Chili Bowl Nationals, coming January 17th, live on MAV TV.
You're listening to the voice of Dirt Motorsports across the nation and around the world.